Well, it's about 10 days since I made the last video and rotary hoed this up in preparation for planting garlic here. Now, in that meantime, we've had a little bit of rain. We had probably around 20 millimetres of rain over 2 or 3 days, and the ground is now fairly moist. Now, thankfully, we've got a beautiful sunny day again as we had yesterday, and so it is drying out a little. But of course, this time of the year, it doesn't dry nearly as fast as it does in summer. I'm going to try and get this prepared today and get the garlic in, because the weather predictors are promising rain over the next 24 hours and potentially another 20 millimetres or so. So if I don't get it done today, it means it's going to be at least another week before it's workable again, and maybe even longer, because it's going to cool off, doesn't dry as well, and as the ground gets wetter and wetter, it's really hard to work it. If the ground gets too wet, then you're going to compact it more and it's not really great. So better to get it planted before the wet really comes. Now, because the wheat had lots of roots, there's quite a bit of growth still going on here, and there's also some germination of weed seed going on. So I've done some little test digs around, and I think it's dry enough for me to run the rotary hoe over just in a light way and stir this up again, and then I can prepare it for a bed. Now that I've rotary hoed it up, I'm actually going to form it up into a single raised bed. I'm going to put 4 rows of garlic in here. Now, the reason I'm really wanting to raise this is because this slope behind me means that the water flows in winter. When we hit the rain, it flows down here into this section, and particularly the top section of this bed can get quite wet. Already, because there's a bit more clay here, you can see it's a bit more sticky on this side than on the bottom side. But if I can establish a good drain, just a scoop drain along this side and around it, so that water coming down is going to flow around this bed rather than into it so much, it's going to be a lot better for the garlic. They will stand being quite wet, because that's what's going to happen over winter, of course, but they don't really want to be overly waterlogged. So that bit of drainage takes a bit of work, but it is worthwhile. Now, it probably seems pretty strange to be talking about trying to keep a crop dry while we've just been through a rather dry autumn. But this is Tasmania, and winter is coming, and pretty much as sure as the sun rises in the morning, that means it's going to be wet. So that's why I'm doing this work. Now, I did change my mind while I was doing this. I had said I would keep this as a single bed with 4 rows. I have decided to turn it into 2 beds and split it down the middle. Now, the advantage of having this track down the middle is not only drainage, but it means that these beds will only have 2 rows each, and I can actually manage those without getting on them at all. If I had not done that, I would have been walking through here anyway and compacting it. So this just adds a little bit more drainage to the situation. So now at this stage, I just need to get my rake out and level these up and start preparing to get the garlic in. Well, with that preparation work done, we're just about ready to get this garlic in. Now, I scratched in a couple of rows in each bed, and I have put in a little bit of blood and bone. It's the only additive that I put into the soil. So, what am I planting? Just these 2 types. I have this one, which is a true garlic. It is a soft neck garlic. I don't know what the variety is called. It was given to me just as Tasmanian garlic quite a few years ago, and I've been growing it successively ever since then. You'll see here one is actually beginning to shoot, and that's one of the factors. This type of garlic, as the season starts to cool, is likely to start to grow or to dry out. Let's see, yeah, smaller ones there are drying and no good, but the big bulbs are the ones I want to plant. Things like that will give you a nice big garlic bulb. So these good big cloves are the ones to go for. So I'll break those up. Now I'm going to put in just one row of this true garlic. We harvest that generally in about November and then consume that for the next 2 to 3 months and a little bit later as well. The second garlic that I'm planting here is an elephant garlic, and I've been growing this stuff for, well, as long as I remember. My father was growing it before I was, so it's been successive in our family for probably at least 60 years. But we like it from the fact that it keeps really well. This garlic will not shoot like the proper garlic until you actually put it in the ground. That means you can keep it for a whole year without any problem at all. So we use this stuff first, and then the bulk of it is this elephant garlic. It's not as strong, you do use a lot more of it. And it also has the disadvantage that you're only going to get around, well, on average, probably 5 cloves that you would really want to grow. There'll be a couple of smaller ones, but they're best not to actually grow from. That means that around 20% of the crop needs to actually be kept and go back in to produce the crop again next year. So that's a pretty sizable amount, whereas, you know, with this stuff, you're getting probably up to 10, at least 8 cloves. So it's a smaller section of the crop that you actually have to reserve for planting. Okay, so I'm going to break it up. I'm going to put one row of the true garlic, and that will be on the drier side, not on this top side where it's going to be wet, because it's a little bit more sensitive to water than the elephant garlic. The elephant garlic is pretty forgiving, but will do better if it isn't too wet. So these really small cloves, I'm not going to actually plant. I will keep those for the kitchen. So this could be enough for one row. I'll go and plant that. I've still got another bulb here if I need more. Now, of course, you plant pointy end up. And I'm planting it about a hand span apart. You can grow it closer, but if you give it more space, you'll get a bigger bulb. If you're wondering about dimensions, it can be pretty difficult, I know, from a camera to estimate the size of these beds. So they're actually 6 metres long, approximately, and probably about a metre wide each. Now, I have planted 23 cloves of that garlic in the one row. With the elephant garlic, I put it in a little bit further apart, generally around about 25-30 centimetres apart. So there's only likely to be around probably 20 cloves in each row. 3 of those is going to give me 60 bulbs. Always get a failure or two, but it'll be approximately 60. And the thing I have to remember is that, as I say, at least 20%, but sometimes up to 25% needs to be reserved for next year's planting. So it gives me effectively 45 usable bulbs, and you always give some away because if someone else wants to grow them or eat them or try them, so you don't really get to consume that many across the year. But this garlic planting is generally sufficient for us to have garlic for the entire year. So with those all planted and in the ground, it's now just time to cover them over. I just scratch the soil back over the top and they'll be ready to start growing. Now, it's really important to remember that if you're planting elephant garlic, it's not going to come out of the ground at the same time as the true garlic does. True garlic is going to germinate and come through very quickly. The elephant garlic you may not see for, well, anything up to 2 months. So don't be surprised that it looks like there's nothing happening. Now at this stage, the question I often put to myself is, do I mulch it or not? Now, across the years, I have done both. Some years I have simply decided to try and manage it with the wheel hoe. Usually that's in different positions and different row directions. However, I don't really find managing this crop with the wheel hoe very successful, because the time of the year it's growing, the soil is getting very damp and it's really hard to work in wet, muddy soil with the wheel hoe effectively. It's not going to really control weeds well or give you a good result. So I think it is much better to mulch, and that's what I'm going to do this year. Now, across the years I've used generally straw, and this year I'm going to use straw again because it's what I have available. The best mulch I've ever used was composted wood chip. It was really great, and if you have it available, an all-in composted wood chip, that's what I would be recommending for garlic. However, I don't have it, so I'm going to be spreading out some straw. Now, the problem that occurs with straw is that it also has some seed in it. In my case, it's wheat, so it's got some wheat in there, and it is actually going to grow wheat as the rain comes. So despite you normally using mulch to control the weeds, you're actually going to get a weed from the mulch in this case. And so I will need to come and pull that wheat that germinates. However, the advantage in controlling the general weed growth, and also straw to some extent will keep some of that water off. As it rains, it will run it off and mean that the soil isn't as damp as it would otherwise be. Well, I have to correct myself here. What I have forgotten is that the straw I bought this year is actually barley straw. And this is the first time I've used it, and looking at it, I really don't see any grain in it. So hopefully this will actually work really well and I won't get much grain germination from it. There may be still a little bit of growth from the wheat that was underneath, maybe, but hopefully this suppresses it. Now, I haven't put it on very heavy, it's pretty light. I still want the garlic to find its way through. So I'll probably need to come back later in the season, somewhere, once the elephant garlic has germinated, and recover it with extra straw to keep those weeds down across winter. I was going to talk about other things I was going to do in the garden in prep for winter, but I think we might call it a video at this stage, and I'll come back and do that in another video.